Okay.
Hi, folks. This is Anthony from Honda Snowblower Enthusiast on Facebook and YouTube channel. I've got my multi-million-dollar production team associate here with me today. She's well paid. I bought her a house in fabulous Lake Tahoe. She sleeps in the house. I live in the garage. It's a good arrangement, okay?
Sure is.
Well, today I'm going to show you um, a no drive issue on a 928 that I picked up yesterday. I'm going to show you exactly how I diagnosed the problem, and then I'm going to show you how I repaired it. I had to revive the hydrostatic transmission in this machine so that it would drive again. So first, let me really quickly go over the first things I checked with the no drive issue. It's a pretty common problem, but ultimately the problem that I found is fairly rare. But when I diagnose a problem, when somebody messaged me or whatever to say, hey Anthony, they're in a panic, the machine's not driving backwards and forwards, these are the things that I check first. Okay, so let me show you. The first thing I tell somebody to check, this is on a hydrostatic model, the 624, 724, 828, 928, 1132, and 1332. It doesn't involve the new HSS models. On the HS models with the hydrostatic transmission, it has called a transmission release lever down here. Right now it's in the release position. Now I do this all the time. I'll put it in a release position to put it in the garage, and I'll forget to put it back on engaged, and then the machine's not driving. So what you do is put it in engaged position, and this will help you. Most times this is the problem. So this will engage the tracks to drive. So that's the first thing I checked on this machine over here. The second thing I check, is the cable. Can you see me okay?
Yes.
All right. Here's your drive handle up here. Now, if this is really loose for some reason, it might be a broken cable, or it might be a broken spring, or the cable came detached from the spring that pushes in. I don't know if you can see this, Susan. Can you see this part moving in
Yes. Yes.
when I'm putting the cable down?
Yes.
So that means it's working. There's a spring in here that's connected to the cable. I show that on a different video. As long as this is engaging the belt, then you're okay with your cable and your spring. Now, if that's working okay, I take the belt cover off. The belt cover is right here. It's 4 little bolts, 10mm head bolts. Very easy to take off. I take the belt cover off, and then I can make sure the belt's not blown. Here's the dry belt right here, and make sure the dry belt is is okay. Now you can start the engine, excuse me, engage the dry belt and make sure that the dry belt's spinning around here. And the last thing you check, okay, let's assume that everything's okay there. The last thing you check is down here at your sprocket wheels. I know you can't see it, but I've talked about this many times. The sprocket wheels that drive your uh, uh, your tracks. There's got a pin that goes through the axle. Now it's very rare, but sometimes both pins can break at the same time, and your transmission's working. It's turning this axle, which you can see by clamping down the drive cable. And if you see the axle turning, then you know the pins. You can see that the pins are missing. So I replace the pins. So maybe you're lucky. And it's one of these 4 things. A very easy fix. Um, a lot of times, most of the time, it's either this lever here that's in the release position instead of the engaged position, or it's the belt that's broken. That's usually the two simplest problems. I always go by simple first, work my way up. So if it's not that lever, it's not the belt, it's not the cable, it's not the pins, then the next thing I check is the hydrostatic transmission. The way to do that is that you start the engine, warm it up a little bit. Oh, I forgot to say one thing. You want to check the oil. You want to check the oil in this reservoir. Now you got two levels. You got a low level here when it's cold, and you got a higher level when it's warmed up. So you pull the cap off. It shouldn't be this tight, folks. This is what causes the problem, actually. It shouldn't be that tight. All it should do is you tighten it up a little bit snug. The oil's not going to leak out of there. So you pull this, you pull the cup. You don't put the oil in the cup, which I've seen many people do. You pull the cup and you look to see if there's any oil in there. Now, if there's no oil in there, that's the clue that you're looking for. Everything else checked out okay. You don't see any oil in that reservoir cup, that's your clue. But before you put it up on the nose, like I have here, I'm going to kill myself.
Promise?
Promise? Yeah, thanks a lot, buddy. Well, anyways, before you put it on the nose, to ascertain that it's the hydrostatic transmission that's not working, you can start the engine up when it's on the ground and warm it up. Make sure it's engaged. You can clamp the drive handle down so you can look underneath and see if the hydrostatic shafts are moving. Okay? If the shafts are not moving, then you've got a problem in this hydrostatic transmission. This is your hydrostatic transmission. If the shafts are not moving, that's where the problem lies. Now, if the shafts are moving, then and everything else checks out, then you've got a problem in this final drive box, which is another whole nother video. But I'm going to talk about the hydrostatic transmission problem. Here's your hydrostatic transmission. Can you get the transmission, Susan?
Got it.
Here's your transmission. Now, when the machine is up on its nose, here's the drain plug. It's a 17 millimeter bolt on this transmission. And what happens a lot of times? What happens if the interior seals haven't failed, or there's no problem inside the transmission? It's kind of rare. These things are almost as bulletproof as the Honda GX engines on the older HS models. These transmissions are practically bulletproof. I've only run across maybe 4 that have failed internally. But what usually happens is that this one side of the seals pops out. It's kind of hard to see, but the seal is popped out. Can you look down here? Can you see that the seal's popped out?
You can't see that, but you
The
can see
seal is not flush with the transmission case. And so what happened is this seal popped out. Usually because your cap is on too tight. The system has to breathe. And if the cap's on too tight, the pressure will build up in the transmission and push out the seal. Well, the seal could fail. If it's old, dried out, cracked, it could fail. So, but most of the time, I've done this repair about a dozen times. Most of the time, the seal pushed out from excessive pressure, and you can push it back in. And that's what happened on this one here. Let me see the camera so I can show people. Can you see the seal right here? See how it's pushed out? All the hydrostatic oil leaked out. It leaked out a little bit at a time. The machine became sluggish. That's a red flag. The the machine became slow, forward and reverse. The owner didn't check the oil, the hydrostatic oil, and once it leaked out enough, the machine stopped driving. And that's what happened with this machine. Now, I already repaired this, but I pulled the seal out again and let the oil leak out to show you guys. So this is what the problem is. And I'm going to show you how I repaired it. So I put it on a, you're going to take these plates off first, especially the top plate, so you can access the drain plug. And I do this too. This is your drive axle. I took the bottom plate off so I could show you the drive axle. Now on this particular machine, it's got a different type of drain plug. And I used the end of my 1/2-inch ratchet wrench. It fits into this plug. Some of the machines have this plug in. I don't know why Honda did this. They don't want people messing with the machines, I guess. But it's got this type of plug. So you just use the end of your 1/2 inch. I'm sorry. It's not a 1/2 inch. It's 3/8 inch, and you use that to push in there, and then you can release your drain plug. Now I released the drain plug. It's full of oil now, but it wasn't before. It was empty. So you fill it up with hydrostatic oil. Here's your Honda Hydrostatic Oil. This is what you want to use. You don't want to use anything else. So you fill this up first. I used a small, what do you call it, Susan? The thing that you put in, the drain, the fill thing. My mind's going, folks. I'm sorry. But you use a funnel, okay, to put some oil in here. Well, before you do this, I'm getting ahead of myself here. Before you do this, you have to fix the seal that popped out. Now you can push it in. You don't have to take the transmission out. I'm just showing you this for demonstration purposes. If you look in the Honda shop manual, they tell you that the transmission has to be removed. That's not the case. I've done this at least a dozen times successfully. The one time it didn't work, it was because the inside of the transmission was fried. So what I do, I use a, a piece of wood, like a painter stick or whatever, and I push it in. You don't want to use metal. You don't want to use a pry bar, anything metal. You might puncture the seal. So I push it in. Make sure that it's flush. I don't know if you can see this side, but this seal is good. See, it's flush with the transmission case. Excuse me. So once you've pushed it in, like I did yesterday on this one, I pushed it in. I haven't used the block yet to keep the seal in. Now the seals, most of the time you can just push them in and block them in. I use this little hose clamp around the shaft here. I'll put the hose clamp around the shaft. I can't take this nut off, but it goes on the shaft there. I put it up right up against the seal so it won't come back out, because the seal it may not leak anymore, but you want to block it in so it doesn't push back out. So you can use a little hose clamp. I will put the measurements of the hose clamps, and I'll put the measurements of everything into the comments at the bottom of the video. Or you can use a two-piece clamp like this. This is a one and a half inch. It's not the right size. I got the wrong size. Somebody told me it was 1/2 inch two-piece clamp. You can put it over the shaft. Okay. I mic'd the shaft. I mic'd it so next time I can get the proper size. It's 16 millimeter. So you want to get a two-piece clamp like this. This is with the screws in it. You want to get the two-piece clamp and put it over the shaft, right up against the. You don't have to have it touching the seal. Right up against it almost, so the seal can't push out and leak oil again. Okay, it's a good insurance. I do it all the time now. At first, I didn't know better, so the seal could push back out and leak again, which usually happens because this cap is on too tight. Well, anyways, you do that first. You put the you put the hose clamp on the end here. After you push the seal back in, flush with the case, or you can use the two-piece clamp. Now, after you've done that, then you can put the oil in the transmission. And once you get it all the way to the top, put the plug back in. Now, you're not done yet. You know, a lot of people think all you have to do is uh, come over here. All people think all I got to do is, well, there's no fluid in there, so all I got to do is put fluid in there, and then I'm good to go. It's not like a car. It's kind of like a brake system. You put the new oil in there, you've got an air bubble inside the transmission. It's not going to work. You got a big air bubble in there. It's a hydraulic type transmission. You can't have any air in the system. So the system has to be bled out, just like a brake system on the old cars. So you just can't add oil and be good to go. Some people have, and they say, oh, it works, but it's not going to work right. It's going to be sluggish. If you got an air bubble in there, you keep on using the transmission, folks. The transmission is going to get hot, really hot inside. It's gonna bubble up. You're gonna end up damaging the interior seals of the transmission, and you're gonna ruin the transmission. That's an $800 part, plus another couple $100 to replace it. Okay, so it has to be bled. So what you do is after you've done all this, put the hose clamp or the two-part clamp on the after you pushed in the seal. Now, if the seal is gonna still leak because the seal is damaged, you're gonna have to replace the seal. Here's the seal now. I'll put the part number in the description. It's a $6 part. It's a real pain in the neck to replace because you have to take this side off. That means the tracks have to be removed, the wheels have to be removed, the crawler plate has to be removed, and this side of the engine bed, or whatever side the seal is on. Hopefully it's this side, folks, because it's easier to do. But if it's this side, you have to pull this side of the engine bed off so you can get to the end. So you can get to the end of the shaft here and take out the old seal. You pick it out with a pick and you press in the new seal. Now, I've only had to do that maybe twice, but most of the time you just push the seal in, block it in, and it works. It's not going to leak. But if the seal is all dried out, if it's old, dried out, cracked, it's going to still leak. I mean, I would try doing this repair first and see if it still leaks. You keep an eye on the oil every time you use it. Check the oil, check the oil. If it's still seeping, which you're really not going to be able to tell if it's seeping slowly. But if it's still seeping, then you're going to have to go through all this malarkey. You got to take your pedal off too. It's a lot of work. It's a couple hours of work. It's a couple $100 in labor. That's worst case scenario. I'm showing you what I did to do this machine. So once you've done this, all this part that's up on the nose, I forgot to tell. I'm always forgetting things because I don't keep notes or anything. I drain the gas from the carburetor. I drain the gas in the tank. Honda recommends you drain the oil in the crankcase. So you could do that too. put a note on your key. Take the key out, put a note on the key that it doesn't have any oil because you don't want to start it up without oil. I'm getting that old, starting to lose my mind, right, Susan?
Yeah.
Okay. So you're getting bored, huh?
Yeah.
All right, we're almost done here, folks. So, anyways, after you've done all that, you can put it back on the ground. I'm going to use this machine for reference. Now you can start putting oil in the reservoir. So what I do, let me get a clamp. I'll be right back. I put the machine in the release position. It's released. And then I'll clamp down the drive handle. I'll start up the machine first, warm up the machine, clamp it down. So you want the transmission to start warming up. Just takes a couple minutes. Once it warms up, you keep it running. You start adding oil.
You're going to owe me big time for this.
Yeah, well, I'm doing some painting in the kitchen for you today. Well, anyways, you start adding oil slowly to your cup. That's going to fill up the hose all the way down to the transmission, and you're going to see air bubbles. Now, that's good. You'll see a lot of air bubbles at first. Just slowly add oil to it, and you'll get air bubbles and air bubbles. They'll come fast at first, and then they'll slow down. Just keep on doing that. It takes I don't know, 10 or 15 minutes. You got to have patience on this. You keep on running until you don't see any more air bubbles, and you can see oil in the cup. Are you showing the cup too?
Yes.
Okay. So you won't see it when you don't start seeing any more air bubbles. Then you're almost done. You put the cover back on. Take the clamp off. Now you can test it. Put the lever in the engaged position. You're looking underneath to see, make sure there's no oil leaking out of the seal. You can put it in the engaged position. You can put the transmission in forward or reverse and slowly try it. And this usually works. So this is what worked on this machine here yesterday. The, this is your drive axle. The drive axle was turning. Your sprocket wheels were turning backwards and forwards. I tested it thoroughly. It works fine. Now, after you've done this, you want to keep an eye on the oil because it's going to take time, actually take a little bit of time before all the air bubbles come up. And it might take a couple days. So keep on checking the oil, adding oil if necessary. Pay attention to the oil level for I would I would just keep on checking it for quite a while, every day, every couple of days or whatever, just to make sure that the oil's not leaking from the bottom, from the seal, or or uh, or the seal hasn't pushed out again, or the oil level's gone down because the air bubbles are still coming up. Okay, so you want to keep an eye on it, and if everything is fine after a short time, then you're good. You're probably good to go. That's how I did this, folks. It's not very complicated. It might seem complicated, but it's not. I've done this many times. It takes me usually 30 minutes, 45 minutes at the most, um, and then you're good to go. So, providing everything else checked out, and you check the oil in the reservoir, and there's no oil in there, you inspect both ends of the hydrostatic transmission to make sure. Usually, it's because the seal pushed out. Okay, and then that's how you do it. So if you like this video, please subscribe to the channel. Have any questions or comments about my production team, go ahead and do that. And
I wouldn't if I was you.
oh, okay. and I'll answer your questions and we'll go from there. So I hope you like this. Please join the Facebook group also, Honda Snowblower Enthusiasts. Thank you and have a great day.